by the grace of God, we are going to continue in the series that we began some weeks ago. And we are in the third module, which talks about the art and the science of leadership. Uh, we've gone through the fundamental core values of School of Transformational Leadership. That is, what is our core, or what are our core values in this school. And today we want to look into some case studies. We want to look into, and also a book review. We want to look at John P. Kotter change process. We're using an organization which I personally researched, a survival experience of worker center in times of crisis. This was an organization that was in a crisis, and we were able to study what was going on in the organization, and was able to understand what exactly was going on in the organization. So you are going to find this session very, very informative. It's going to be very, very empowering. I don't want you to take it lightly. I want you to grab it with the whole of your hand, because it is something that will set you on the path of becoming a great leader. So today we want to talk about John P. Kotter change process. Then later on we'll be looking at a review of Robert Coy's book, Deep Change. So we'll be taking a review into that book and see how wonderful that book is. So, Putwula, can you excuse me? Sorry about that. So, we are going to be taking John P. Kotter change process, a survivor experience of worker center in times of crisis. I want to believe we've all gone through the material that I sent to us earlier on, about 2 weeks ago or thereabout. It is very important that we have gone through it, so that it will be easier for us to flow together as we look into what we have for today. So I want to begin by asking, maybe you want to answer it in a layman's language before we now begin to look into the experience that they have in Worker Center Ecumenical Exchange. Now, what should you do when you realize that your organization is failing and about to be put out of business? Naturally, what should you do when you discover that the organization you are working with or you are working for is about to be put out of business? What should be your natural reaction? What should you do? You are free to respond. You can, if you want to put it in the chat, that's also fine. But I will prefer we interact, so that it will make our job to be very good. Somebody said she can't hear anything. Can you hear now? I believe we are all hearing me. Can we all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so Somebody is saying you should join with audio. You might want to log out and join with audio. That way you will hear what we are saying. Okay, so let's respond. What do you do when you realize that your organization is about to be put out of business? We have to be very fast so that we don't waste time.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, to me, if I meet myself in this,
you might need to mute one of your devices.
Hello?
You might need to mute one of your devices and reduce the volume.
Yeah, I just did now.
Yeah.
Okay. For me to meet myself in this kind of condition, I think I need to reevaluate myself. Like I would have to do an evaluation.
You evaluate yourself. You do a kind of they call it in the human resources reappraiser. You are reappraise yourself evaluation. Okay, that's somebody saying he will evaluate. He will do a kind of re-evaluation of what is happening, what is going on in the organization. Yes, do we have some other contribution? We just want to hear us before we go into the materials, into the material that has been given for this session before we delve into it. Yes, do we have some other contribution? What would you do when you realize, or what should you do when you realize that your organization is about to be put out of business? I think for me, the question to ask yourself, just like Toby said, he said he will evaluate himself. Now, that is not very far from what I'm going to be sharing. I think the very first question you should ask yourself is, why is this organization failing? Why is this organization not working in full capacity of its potential? That is the question that you should be asking yourself. Now, if you look at that question that I've just asked now, you will discover that it does sound like you are about to plot a strategic direction for your organization. That is what it sounds like. And if you've been part of the strategic leadership lesson, you will understand that this is one of the questions that you ask yourself as a strategic leader. Or if you've also listened to the adaptive leadership, this is the work of a leader. You want to evaluate yourself. You want to ask yourself, why is this organization failing? The moment you ask that question, why, before you know it, if you are really sincere with knowing why your organization is failing, before you know it, you will begin to find answers pouring down to you, if you are really sincere with that question. And here are some of the possible discoveries you will likely uncover through that question. These are some of the change process that John P. Kotter put in place. When I read that book, Leading Change by John P. Kotter, what occurred to me is that he said for you to lead a change in an organization, he outlined 7 change process you have to take. And I suddenly discover, when you take those 7 change processes and flip it and ask yourself, Why is the organization failing? You will suddenly discover that the reason why the organization failing, your answers to those questions are the solution to the change that you want to implement in that organization. And these are some of the discoveries you will discover as you begin to ask that question. You will suddenly discover that there is complacency in the organization. People don't care. People have this lackadaisical attitude. People are becoming very sloppy to work. There is lack of sense of urgency in the organization. That is one of the things you will discover. Another thing you will discover is that you will discover that there is a lack of powerful guiding coalition. That means people are not driving towards achieving the same objective. You will begin to see people pulling away from the mission and the purpose of the organization. They are not working in the path of achieving the goal of the organization. So there is lack of cooperation among the employees, among the workers. That is another thing you will discover. Another thing you will discover by asking the question, why is this organization failing, is that you will discover that there is perhaps a lack of vision. You see, wherever there is no vision, there can never be motivation. Where there is no vision, people will never be motivated to do great things. So when there is lack of vision, it could result into one of the reasons why an organization is failing. Another thing could be poor communication system. When the flow of communication in the organization is not very smooth, is not very dynamic, there is obstacles, there are hindrances towards the flow of communication network within the organization. It can be one of the reasons why an organization is failing. When there is no proper way to communicate the goals, the objectives, and the aspiration of the leaders in the organization. Another thing could be financial obstacles, which of course will be blocking the execution of new vision. When there is no finance to execute business, it could also be a reason why an organization is failing. Let's face the reality. There is no organization that can survive without finance. You can't. There is no way you want to do it. You need sufficient amount of financial resources to be able to pull off any goal or any dream off the ground. I'm not saying finance is everything, but you do need a substantial amount of financial strength for you to be able to pull it through. So, financial obstacle that is blocking the execution of the vision of the organization could also play a role in the reason why an organization is failing. Another thing could be lack of appreciation for small organizational ways. You see, when you are in an organization and you have a group of team members working with you in that organization, and maybe you are able to you are able to accomplish some goals, you are able to finish some tasks, and as a leader, you are not interested in celebrating and appreciating those who have contributed, to those small ways. It could demoralize the people. It could dampen the spirit of the team members. So you have to learn how to appreciate the small wins They may look small, but they are important. It is the combination of those small wins that result into big wins. So don't overlook any wins you have in your organization and say, this is not important. Every wins are important. No matter how little, no matter which department it is coming from, take time to celebrate it. When you don't celebrate people, you don't acknowledge people's extraordinary effort that produces results, it is going to affect the success of that organization in the long run. Another thing could be failure in creating sustainable incremental win situation. It's just when you are not able to celebrate the small wins, and you are not even able to sustain, or maybe you did it for a while and you are not able to sustain it. It could also result in a reason why an organization is also failing. And number 8, inability to anchor changes firmly into the corporate organizational culture. You see, when you are implementing a change in an organization and you can't entrench that change into the corporate culture of that organization, the organization is not going to survive. You see, everything about an organization revolves around the culture of that organization. And what is culture? Culture is the way people behave in the organization. And let me tell you, you don't get to determine what your culture is. No. You don't get to say that this is what your culture is going to be. Your culture is going to flow out naturally from the behaviors, first from the leaders, then also to other team members within the organization. Culture is not something that you can mechanize. It cannot be mechanized. It flows naturally, and you have to be deliberate about it. But you cannot, you cannot mechanize it. Even though you can initiate it, you cannot predict that this is how it is going to look like. It is going to flow naturally from leaders, then also to the team members. So if you are not able to anchor the changes you are making in your organization firmly into the corporate organizational culture, then it could spell disaster for the organization. Now, how do you go from chaos to order? When an organization is failing or is about to be put out of business, one of the things you will notice is that there will be chaos in that organization. Perhaps you have experienced a situation, or you have experienced a chaotic situation where you were part of that group that is experiencing that chaos. You will discover that in every facet of life, either in the business world, in the church world, in the political space, name it, whatever spheres of human influence that you want to talk about, wherever or whenever there is chaos in that setting, I want to guarantee you that these are the 4 things every leader does. Every effective leader, this is what they do to move that organization from chaos to order. And I want to beg you that it is important for you to understand this, because when you too become a leader of an organization and you are faced with this similar crisis, these are the steps you will need to take to rescue your organization out of that predicament. Now, the worker center ecumenical exchange that I studied, these were the things that I found the leader or the leaders who eventually brought some kind of support to that organization. These were the things they put in place. And I have found it to be true of every organization that is going through a moment of crisis. Now, to go from chaos to order, this is the first thing you must do. You have to lay off disgruntled and inefficient workers and retain the good ones. Listen to me, this happens all the time. Check it, check any organization. When a bank takes over another bank, believe me honestly, some staffs are going to go. Some are going to be retained. So that is the law of moving from chaos to order. You want to disengage all the staffs that are disgruntled, that cannot buy into the vision of the organization, and all the inefficient workers that are only bleeding the resources of the organization. You want to disengage those workers from your organization. And that is the first thing to do. Even, I've told you I love to watch soccer. When they bring a new coach into a football team, check it all the time. This is what they do. They flush out some players whom they believe are not happy with the system of the organization or the system of the team, or some ineffective players. They sell them off, and they buy new players. They recruit new players. They might even recruit new the back room management staffs. This is very, very important. And you can also believe me, there are some team members that will still be retained. It is not every team member that will be sacked or that will be disengaged. Some will definitely be valuable to the organization. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, the number 2 thing you must do, which I have also been saying, is that you must recruit other key personnel who can bring dynamism and productivity into the workplace. You lay off disgruntled and inefficient or ineffective workers, and then you recruit those who can bring in productivity, who can increase your performance, the organizational performance into the workplace. You recruit such key personnel, and that is the way every organization does it all the time. Number 3, moving from chaos to order, then you will need to prioritize work schedules for staff and assign work to them based on their strength and capability. Don't say because staff A loves to do work, a lot of work, you now begin to assign assignment, or you now begin to assign work to him that he does not have capability for. You see, it is always in the best interest of your organization and in your best interest as a leader and in the best interest of your worker to always ensure that you match your worker with work that they have capability for. If you are not matching your team members with what they are capable of doing, your organization will be losing, the staff will not be happy, and you as a leader, you will become unproductive. So you always want to match your talent with the best. You want to match your talent with the best job opportunity that you have within the organization. Another thing you want to do, which is number 4, to move from chaos to order, is that you must have efficient operational procedures in place for the day-to-day running of the organization. You see, there is always a better way of doing things. You see, for the fact that you are doing certain things a particular way and you are achieving a particular result does not mean that that is the only way to get it done. You always need to think and rethink of a new way of doing things. And that is why it is important for you to organize your workplace in such a way that the operations of activities within your organization is not just effective, but it is also efficient. You want to ensure that the operational procedure is both efficient and effective so that your organization will continue to survive. That is the fourth thing you must do as a leader. And that is what I found the two co-executive director of Worker Center. That is what I found them doing when I was researching that organization. Prior to these two co-directors, who they are eventually actually they were husband and wife. Prior to their employment as the co-executive director of Worker Center, there have been two prior leaders that were engaged, but they couldn't pull it off. They couldn't produce the result that the board of trustees were expecting. In fact, they even put the organization in a serious problem because they put them in such a problem that people had to sue the organization. And the little resources they have in that organization was being used to pursue cases in the court. And you don't want that to happen to you. So these are the four things you will need to do to move from chaos to order. Now, I want to ask you some questions if you have read the book. I want you to mention some of the specific steps that Amy, you should be familiar with those names, Amy and Josh took to reposition their organization for survival. What do you think they did? What did you think they did to reposition their organization, the Worker Center, for survival? I have listed about 8 things that I think that they did. I'm sure you will also discover some. So what are the things that they did to ensure that they reposition the organization for survival? These things will benefit you. This is basically what you will do if you become a leader of any organization. There is nothing different. Whether you are leading a country as a political leader, or you are leading an organization as a business person, or you are leading a church as a pastor or a prophet or whatever, these are basically what you are going to do if you find your organization in trouble. If you have read the book, just share with me what you've read. What are some of the specific steps you saw in that material that Amy and Josh did to reposition the organization for survival? What were the things that they did? Let's make it snappy. The beauty of this session is that we really interact. That is the beauty.
Okay. For me, deep change is the acknowledgement that nothing changes unless people change. I think they have to take a personal look into their self first.
Yeah.
And they tend to know that if an organization is to go forward, people won't change unless the person involved are changed. The leader, are you there, sir?
Yeah,
Hello?
I'm following. I'm following you.
So
Go ahead.
I think the four types of change that they looked at in my own view, my own little review, is the strategic transformational change, the structural change,
Right.
the remedial change, and the people-centric organizational change.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those powerful points. The strategic, did you say strategic change? The structural change,
Strategic transformational change,
strategic transformational change, structural change,
structural change,
remedial change,
remedial change,
and uh, and
and then the
people-centric,
people-centric organizational change.
people-centric organizational approach. They were really people-centric
Yeah.
in their approach because of the way they were able to uh, build trust. People that were not trusted initially, they became supportive of what they were doing in the organization. Thank you for those powerful observations from what Amy and Josh did to reposition the organization. Now, I have been able to identify 8 things that they did. Number one, you will find some of them in what Toby have just shared with us. Number one, they had proper organizational structure in place with employees knowing whom they are responsible for. One of the things that they did was to do division of labor between the two of them. The wife was facing certain department of the organization while the husband was facing the other aspects of the organization. So they had proper organizational structure such that the employees know whom they were responsible for. And the consequence of this was that it eased the flow and the dissemination of information, either top down or bottom up, as a feedback mechanism. You see, there is no way to run an organization other than to have people know who they are to report to. When there is confusion about whom I am to report to, then there is going to be a problem in that organization. So that was the first problem they had to resolve, putting organizational structure in place. Number two, they also delegated work and responsibility to their employees. You see, the first two leaders that were employed, what were they doing? They were trying to do things for themselves. They were trying to put so much load on themselves. But in the case of Amy and Josh, they focused on the most important thing within the organization and delegated responsibility and work to their employees according to their capability. Another thing they did to reposition the organization for survival was that they focused more on strategic thinking and future direction of the organization rather than focusing on what are we going to do today. They were not just in the present, they were also looking into the future. Another thing they did, which is number 4, was that they tried their best to motivate the workers through incentives and work benefits. Initially, there were so many workers that, in fact, there was one of the workers that told me that initially when they were employed, she was very skeptical of them. But along the line, when they now began to see the effort they were putting into the work, they now began to appreciate, she said they now began to appreciate their leadership style the more. So they motivated workers through incentives and work benefits. Another thing they did was to turn the organization into a profitable enterprise. You see, when an organization is about to die, number one thing that you will know with that organization is that that organization is not able to generate revenue again. Or maybe the cost is more than the revenue they are generating. So one of the things that they did was to ensure that the organization become profitable. And it is very, very important. If you find yourself in a position of leadership, one of your primary goals is to make your organization profitable. Another thing they did, which is number 6, was that they created a cultural identity for the organization by modeling the kind of behaviors. You can see that they cannot legislate it, but they can model it. You see, people do what people see. If you say something and you want people to do what you say, it's not going to happen. People will only do what you do. So what they did was to model the behavior that they want in that organization. And what follows afterward? That becomes the culture and the way of life of that organization. Before then, people were stealing things from the organization. They were preferring things. People were doing all kind of shady deals. But the moment they came in, everything stopped because they modeled the right behavior for people to see. Another thing which they did, which is number 7, was that both of them were committed as lifelong learners. They were always seeking opportunity to learn new things. They were not stagnant, or they did not uh, they did not they did not coast with what they already knew. They were always eager to know more. And because they were eager to know more, it enabled them to be flexible and to be able to see the future in a better light. So they were both committed, lifelong learners. And in fact, that was what they said to me. And that is one of the things that John, P. Kotter stated as one of the things that a leader who is leading a change must do. You have to become a committed, lifelong learners, because when you continue to learn, even when situations occurs which you were not used to before, but because you are always learning new things, it will help you to know how to tackle such situation. And last but not the least, the things that they did to reposition the organization for survival was that they both relied on their previous work-life experience to improve performance in their current role as co-executive director. So the meaning of this is that, you see, no matter where you are working now, please make sure you are doing it with all of your heart. You see, if you don't do the job of another man very well, there is no way you will have the strength, the mindset to be able to do your own work very well. If you don't do another man's work as though it is your work, there is no way you will be able to do your own work well. So one of the things that really worked for them was that they had worked in some secular organization before. So the experience that they got from such places, they brought it to this new organization, which was very helpful for them. So you have to always rely on your previous work-life experience. You don't know when it will be useful for you. Don't just go to your workplace as if you don't have anything to achieve. Always go with a mindset that what I'm going to face today or what I'm going to confront today is going to be useful for me in the future. That is the mindset we should all have as we as we forge ahead in our career path in life. So I think we've come to the end of the first case review, which is on John P. Kotter change process, the survival experience of worker center in times of crisis. So if you have any question, maybe from the reading that you want to ask from me, please go ahead and do so now before we move to the next one, which will be on a review of Robert Quay's uh, deep change. So we will go into that in a moment. If you have any question, please go ahead and ask. Any question? Do we have any question? Okay, if there are no questions,